Hello there, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 18 of the Celtic Minded podcast. I'm Frank and he's Tommy. Extra time. I've added that in, Frank. I've added that in because in our new version of the podcast, where we're being much more disciplined, we're going for 30 minutes, which is why it's called Extra Time. So there you go.
Well, that's a good idea.
Now, the only problem is, I'm going to have to probably interrupt this. Gail, yeah, we're in the middle of the podcast.
Oh, sorry, you're not with Gabrielle?
No, she's upstairs. She's had everything done. Okay.
Just like that's me on my way home.
Right,
Bye.
okay, bye. There you go. Such is the domestic trials and tribulations of life. The wife phones me during the podcast. And if I hadn't answered that, she would have given me a doing, you know that? Because she's the boss.
Well, she said to me last week she would like to come on, so there you are.
Well, she's on her way home, so maybe she'll come on to the podcast. But Frank, what a performance we had in our last game at Parkhead. I've got to say to you, before I get to your beautiful new t-shirt, which I know that you've got a story about, was it the most complete performance of the season so far? 7-0, really should have been 11.
Well, coming off the game against Rangers, being a goal down and comfortably coming back to 1-2-1, defence playing brilliant, and I didn't think Celtic would lose any goals against St Johnstone, and I thought they would make about 15 chances. I was right in all that, but I didn't think they would score 7 goals. Not only was there 7 goals scored, it was all different players that were scoring the goals, and that's what I like about this team just now. You know, everybody's scoring and everybody's defending. As I said last week against Rangers, the team was the man in the match.
The interesting thing, you've just made the point about the different scorers. I think 6 different scorers. Obviously Riley got 2, but of that, they're Angie's signings. So it just shows you the significance of what he's done. The players that he's brought in have not just been bit part players, they have actually been the cogs of the team. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And you've got to remember, I don't think the board will be buying any more players without Angie's authorisation now, which is good for Celtic. His signings have been very good, and the ones that have come in that he's not signed have not really played.
Well, it's interesting. We have had a discussion before. The boy Liam Shaw, I think, was already signed. The boy Urigizi was signed when Angie was there, but I'm not sure it was actually his signing. I'm not sure about McCarthy, but the truth is the players that he signed, I'm struggling to look for a failure, because every one of them have given something to the club, have given something to the team. And what is so impressive now, Frank, from my point of view, 3-0 at half time, he then changes the team, brings on quality substitutes, and we scored another 4 goals. And personally, I thought the boy Riley's second goal, I just thought it was phenomenal. His first goal was great move, diving header. But if you look at the build-up to his second goal, I've tried several times to count the number of passes, and I get to about 27, 28, and then I'm getting confused. I think it was a minimum of 28 passes before that goal. It's got to go down as one of the goals of the season.
Yeah, for me it was the perfect goal. Everybody passing the ball. To have about 25 passes, you've got to be good at passing, and then to make the opportunity for the player has to be a good pass, and then the finish has to be a good pass. So you have 28 things roughly went into scoring that goal, which is a perfect a goal as you can get.
Well, his finish I thought was phenomenal. His left foot, people are already making comparisons between him and Rogic, and I can understand why people are making the comparisons, because both of them have got wands for their feet, and his finish for that goal, I just thought it was sublime. The boy's only 21. He's obviously still learning his trade. He's not been playing at the highest level. He now is got a platform to give us all of his skills, and the truth is, I'm dead excited. I think he's going to be a fantastic signing.
Well, so do I. I think the manager's given the players, any player that's getting into that team, he's given them a chance, and it's up to them to take it or not. And they know, the players that are coming in, they know how good this team is now. So they've got to be top class. and it's just growing through the club. And Celtic have got momentum. As I said last week, I didn't understand momentum. I just wanted to understand when momentum happens. That is something I don't know. I know what momentum is, but Celtic have got it in spades, and they go to a game this weekend with a very, very tired Rangers team.
Well, here's the, we're clear that last Saturday was a complete performance, a fantastic performance from Celtic, and really shows the progress we've made under Ange. What was also great about it, before we move on, is you and I last week, we were a wee bit worried after the high, as you said. You go to Ibrox, a very hostile crowd, you go one down, and then they equalise, and they've got the guts and the determination to go ahead, and then the whole of the 45 minutes second half, they just stood their ground, and they made the best chances of the game. So even though Rangers had to score, it was actually Celtic made the best chances. So I was worried a wee bit. You go from that high to then at home to St Johnstone, second bottom in the league. Are they going to raise their game? And the truth is, they did raise their game. So we're now going into Sunday's match, a Scottish Cup semi-final. And I have to say, Frank, during your 5 seasons at Glasgow Celtic, I think you played in 3 semi-finals. You certainly played in 2 finals, I know that. And in your last game, of course, and you didn't just play in the final of the Scottish Cup, you scored the winning goal as well with a remarkable header.
Yeah, I've never scored a goal like that in my whole life. There was 100,000 people at the game that day. The Celtic end was completely full. You couldn't get another person in the Celtic end. There was well over 100,000 people at that game that day. And we were playing Dundee United. Now, people say, Dundee United. Dundee United were rated 15th in Europe at the time. They had one of the best defences in European football, not Scottish, European football. And you've got to remember, they got into the semi-final of a Champions League at that time. So that's how good Dundee United were. They weren't just a wee team lying about. That's how the highest standard there was at that time. And we were getting beat 1-0, and we thought that that was it. And then Davy Hay made an unbelievably brilliant substitution, taking off Paul McStay, putting Roy Aitken into midfield to fill that. And Roy made the complete change. Davy Provan scored a wonder free kick with about 10 minutes to go, and Roy Aitken put a terrible cross into me. But I managed to put it into the net. Roy knows I'm kidding. He knows I love him.
It was behind you a wee bit, but it was a great run by Roy, wasn't it?
But the most important thing is, when you're playing with players, I knew Roy would have one touch, and then he would put side spin on the ball and put that ball into the box. Now, if you look at Dundee United's defence, they were all in the perfect position. I just managed to get in between Neri and the fullback, I think, and header it. But the most important thing about that header was it had side spin on it. It was going by the post. I don't know if I put side spin on it or the Celtic fans sucked it in. I don't know. And I'm being honest when I'm saying this, because it was that good a goal that only they 2 things could have happened. Yeah. And I still don't know.
So the Celtic fans sucked it into the net because they wanted that trophy to be lifted. But in your first season, you signed in 1980, and of course you play in the Cup final, don't you? 1980-81 Cup final against Rangers. And I was speaking just at the weekend there to a good friend of yours, a man that you had a great relationship with, and we discussed that goal because he scored it. Obviously, he was making the point that Danny McGrain very rarely shot, but he shot that day, and George managed to get the flick on it and scored the goal. But you, George and Nicholas, you between you, I think 70 goals or something you scored one season.
No, in 1982-83 season, Charlie Nicholas, George McCluskey and myself scored over 100 goals.
Is that right?
And Dundee United won the league that year.
Incredible. That your first season, you were top goal scorer, 29 goals.
Charlie had 28 goals that season. He was just a star. And I managed to beat him. I was determined to beat Charlie. I couldn't have a wee guy coming in from nowhere, being top goal scorer, and I've just signed for Liverpool for a record fee. I had to make sure I beat him in the goals, and that was very important to me. And yeah, I made Charlie quite a lot of goals.
Next season, I think he scored 48 and you scored 26, I think.
I think roughly about that. I think Charlie scored over 50 goals next season. And I scored about 26 and George McCluskey scored about 23. Anyway,
between you, it was over 100.
Over 100 goals. And other players, we had Murdo McLeod scoring goals, Tommy Burns scoring goals, Paul McStay scoring goals, Roy Aiken scoring goals, Roddy McDonald. So we had
stretching a wee bit. Big Roddy never scored that many goals.
Aye, he scored. I'm just saying he scored goals. But what I'm trying to say is that Celtic team knew how to score goals. The only deficiency that Celtic team had was, as a team, we didn't defend properly.
Well, that first season, Frank, you play a semi-final, and we're going to be previewing the semi-final that's coming up on Sunday. And it was quite a unique cup semi-final because there was a player playing against you that was quite unique in his own right.
Well, this player that played for Hibs at the time is one of my favourites, and not in Britain or Europe, in the world. George Best, for me, was a genius. He played a game against Scotland in 1969. That's probably one of the best performances I've ever seen from a player. He controlled the game at Hampden, and if you've ever got a chance to see that game, watch it and just watch George Best. It was unbelievable, and I had the pleasure to play against him in that game. And even he was a bit older, early 30s, he was still some player.
Right.
And he was a great person as well.
And did you get a chance to chat with him, talk to him? Was he asking you about your goals and things like that?
No, I walked by him after the game, and he spoke to me and said, "Go to the road."
But you won that game. I think it was at 4-0 or 4-1?
We scored 4 goals. We won comfortably, but Hibs weren't a great team at that time, and we had George McCluskey was a great centre forward. Charlie Nicholas at the time was the best centre forward in Europe. Every club. Now the reason I say that is every club in Europe wanted him, and Charlie came and asked me about Liverpool. He said, "Frank," I've got Arsenal, Liverpool. He said, "What about Liverpool?" I said, "Charlie, you might have to wait a year or two to get in the team, or you might get in the team right away." I said, "I had to wait. I was waiting a year. That's why I asked for a transfer." So that's why Charlie never went to Liverpool.
Right, okay.
He asked me, and he went to Arsenal, which was probably one of the best decisions that he ever made in his life, because he went down to London, he got involved with Sky Sports, and then all of a sudden he's got a job there for the next 25, 30 years. That's where Charlie's made all his money. Charlie never made any money at Celtic. I was on £300 a week at the time. Charlie was on £90 a week, and he was scoring all the goals.
Seriously, was that the wage salaries in those days?
I think Bobby Lennox was on £70 a week at that time. A Lisbon Lion on that amount of money.
Poor stuff.
You just can't believe it. No, there's 70,000 people come to Parkhead, and Bobby Lennox is on £70-80 a week. I couldn't believe
Phenomenal
it.
player. Phenomenal. Speed was incredible.
I played
but
with
a great
Bobby
servant. Did you actually play him?
I played him. I think he played in that game. He came on as sub. You'd have to check that one out. But that's where, when I watched Celtic, when I used to watch Stevie Chalmers and Bobby Lennox go behind defenders all the time. And I said, that's a good idea. If you go behind it, any defence, that defence is in trouble. And they'd done that constantly. And that made me, I was like, at the time, I was never going to be a player or anything. And I said, if I ever reach that level, I'm going to go in behind all the time. And that's what I done. I went in behind defences all the time. And it was perfect for me when Charlie Nicholas was playing. He would drop short, he would leave a big hole for me to go in. And we won a lot of games just with that simple move. Me getting in behind, he coming short. And And we made a lot of goals just doing that. And with Danny McGrain, who was a great passer of the ball, Paul McStay. It's okay making all these runs, but you've got to have the players that can pass the ball to you.
Right. Well, you talk about how good Dundee United were during that era that you were at Celtic. But I've checked the statistics there, and during your 5 seasons at Celtic, you won the Scottish Cup twice. Aberdeen won it 3 years in a row.
Well, they were an exceptional team at that time. They had Alec Ferguson, and it was I wanted to go to Aberdeen when I left Liverpool, but if I'd went to Aberdeen and not Celtic, I wouldn't have been allowed to live in Glasgow for the rest of my life. So I chose to go to Celtic because of the fans. That's why I chose. I wanted to go to Aberdeen because of Alec Ferguson.
There was a story that you were offered more money to go to Aberdeen.
Yeah, I was offered.
Is that true?
Yes, I was offered more money to go to Aberdeen, but at that time, when I was young, I was quite naive. But at that time, players never played for money to be millionaires. And players played because they loved playing football. They loved playing for Celtic. They loved playing for St Mirren and Rangers because that's the teams that they wanted to. And they didn't care about money that much. And the directors at that time, well, I don't know where all the money went. It definitely didn't go to the players.
Okay. Well, you played in the game 80-81 season where Celtic won 1-0 against Rangers, and then you play in the 85 final and you score the winning goal. What's going through players' minds now as they prepare for Sunday's game? Because I always think semi-finals are almost the most dangerous games, because you get to a final and you pick up a medal regardless of what happens, and it's a fantastic spectacle. But who remembers the semi-finalists in a season? You do so well to get to a semi-final, but if you lose that game, you're just forgotten.
You're talking a way to prepare for these games. What I used to do all the time is 2 days before the game, I used to concentrate in my mind what I was wanting to do in the park, how I was going to play. I'd done that Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and that took up a lot of my time thinking, right, we're playing against Dundee United, I need to make shallow runs and then go in behind. And other teams like Aberdeen, Willie Miller would be a sweeper, so he would hang back 10 yards and sweep everything. So I had to find out different ways of playing different defences, and I used to do all these things. And I scored a lot of goals against Aberdeen and against Dundee United, and because of my concentration on the Friday and the Saturday before the game that helped me a lot. If I didn't concentrate on what I had to do on the Saturday, I never really played that well.
Good, that's great advice, not just for current players but for youngsters that are hopefully watching the podcast. And if you are watching it, please share it as well, because our viewing figures have went up quite significantly. I hope you know that. I think it's the 30-minute thing that's helped us.
Well, I think you've done very well, Tommy, with that, and calling it extra time. That's good. And but people, I think, after half an hour get bored.
Yes.
So
yeah,
we don't want to bore anybody.
That's true. But from our point of view on Sunday at Hampden, you've already made the point, playing a Rangers who have just come off of a very good result for them. They've came through a quarter-final against Braga. It went to extra time. They were playing 9 men, obviously, but anyway, they managed to get through. I'm hoping they'll be a bit tired.
I think there's two things here. I always remember we played Sporting Lisbon, right? We played them and we played out our skin. We scored 5 goals, and everybody's saying, oh, they'll be tired for the game in Saturday against Motherwell. And they're right, people to say that, but see, when you won the game, I don't know where this comes from. If anybody can tell me this again, where all that energy comes from. Now, we went and beat Motherwell 6-0 on the weekend after.
Right.
Because we won. Now, if we would have get beat 5-0 against Sporting Lisbon, we would have never won 6-0. And there's this thing, if you win the game, you seem to get more energy and confidence into your team, and that makes you very dangerous. But Rangers having to play an extra half hour when they were already tired will not help them at all. But by winning the game will give them extra energy. So I think
more adrenaline to go on.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have. And they will go into the game and they will think they've got a chance. But Celtic are going in fresh. They've got momentum like I've never seen a Celtic team. They are flying, so they are. But what I've always found in life and in football, overconfidence is not a good thing. You can't have that. But I think Angie will make sure this Celtic team are not overconfident.
Great. I mean, because that is the point, isn't it? We're at a stage now, I think, Frank, where maybe earlier in the season we would have been concerned about how other teams play, particularly if you're playing the Rangers and you're worried about this or that player. The truth is now, we are so accomplished and we've came so far that if Celtic players play well, we win. It's as simple as that. We win. If our players turn up on the day, we win the match because player for player, I think we're better players.
Yeah, you're exactly right with what you said there, Tommy, and Celtic should win, no problem. But I thought Chelsea should have beat Brentford a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4-0, and Brentford beat Chelsea 4-1. So that's the great thing about football. We don't really know the answer. It's only when the day the game comes up that you see it. But you're perfectly right. Rangers should tire badly in the game, and Celtic should win comfortably. But you've got to remember, this is an Old Firm game and anything can happen in these games.
Well, there's the old adage, isn't there, Frank, that if football was played in paper, it'd be a lot easier to predict, but it's never played in paper. It's played with 11 guys against 11 guys, and at the end of the day, each one of those players has to earn the right to win their personal battles, don't they? I mean, if any of our players go into that park, as you say, with overconfidence, with a wee bit of conceit, then the other player can get an upper hand, and you end up losing a goal, a slip, a mistake, and then you're chasing a game, and they get a bit of confidence. So we need to start, don't we, like a house on fire. We need to be absolutely steam locomotive and at them right from the outset.
But Celtic do that anyway. Now, if Rangers would have played last night and get beat, I would have said Celtic are certainties to win this game at the weekend. So, but they won the game, and the players were all happy. Now you see them going out; they were all very, very tired as well. But they will rest now. They will rest, and it'll be interesting to see. If it's very close, come to the end of the game, Celtic will definitely have the upper hand, because this is a very, very fit Celtic team. They know they close down, they do everything, and I just don't see. I can't see Celtic getting beat in the game. And if they get a goal, which I think they will get a goal early on, and if they get that goal early on, the game's finished.
Okay, so here's a wee conundrum. It's a great conundrum to have, but if Ange has got the full squad, which he appears to have, Kyogo come on Saturday, played very well, very unlucky not to score, very good effort. And appeared to be enjoying himself and looked fit. Unfortunately, Giakoumakis took a bit of a hamstring injury in the first half. I think it was only after about 20-25 minutes he scored a very, very good goal before he had to go off. But if he's fit, do we start with the same team, or does he change it and bring in Giakoumakis?
I could
bring in Kyogo.
I've got a great saying in it, and it's a perfect saying. If it's working, don't fix it. Okay,
so from your point of view, you would go with Jota, Maeda, Giakoumakis, your front three.
Well, if they're all fit, and Celtic are on. Celtic are flying just now. I've never seen the fans so happy. I've never seen them.
Well, the back five picks itself, doesn't it? I mean, right now, Hart has been, as you've said, the last podcast, you think he's probably the best signing of the season. Certainly value for money and everything. It was I think it was a free transfer, but it cost $1 million in a contract, or was it to buy out a contract? Whatever it was, it certainly was chicken feed in terms of today's football prices. But he's in goals. You're back four then. You've got Josip at right back, Carter Vickers and Starfelt, who I thought on Saturday against St Johnstone were utterly peerless. They were. I don't think they made a single mistake. Taylor, I'm not his greatest fan. I think his lack of height, his lack of speed can sometimes be handicaps. But he puts in a shift, and recently he's been playing well. So they pick themselves, don't they? Midfield, McGregor for me is your main man. McGregor is definitely, to me, he's already your player of the season personally. And then you've got to say Hatate and Rogic, Hatate and Riley, or do you go Turnbull and Rogic, or personally I would go Hatate and Rogic if they're fit.
Yeah. But I would just keep playing the same team, get them playing together, and then all of a sudden, and keep them under pressure. Liverpool done that in the 70s and 80s. They had a good first team, but they had a brilliant second team, and all that second team kept the first team players under pressure. That's why they were successful. That's one of the reasons. Now this is what Celtic are doing now. They keep playing the same team all the time, and the guys that are coming in can't wait to come in, and when they come in, they're going to make a statement, and that's the way to run a football club.
We're getting near the end of the episode 18, Frank, but you did have a reason to buy a new t-shirt.
Well, I hit 100 golf balls up at East Kilbride this morning, and I said I'll maybe get I seen a nice green and white t-shirt. I said I'll get that for the podcast this afternoon. And I said no, I'll go for the green and gold one, for one reason. I think this might be a golden year for Celtic.
Wow, there you go. You've heard it from Frank. He's not just a legend on the park, he's also a bit of a poet as well. A golden year for Celtic.
I was reading Robbie Burns last night.
Right, I'll tell you what, we're at a situation now where on Sunday we have to have a clear strategy, which is blank out talks of trebles and talks of being the champions. We have to blank it all out and take Sunday's game for just a one-off game, because that's it. Unlike your day where you used to have replays, I think you had a couple yourself.
That's interesting.
There is no replay, so this is a one-off game, and you don't think, even though he's available, you wouldn't change it. You wouldn't start with Kyogo.
I wouldn't start with Kyogo. Now Celtic just won 7-0. Why change? A team that's just won 7-0. Why change it?
Well,
Kyogo is a brilliant player. There's no doubt about that. But that's brilliant. Imagine having that problem every week. We've only got Kyogo, a brilliant player on the bench, to come on if anything goes wrong. That's why substitutes are there. If anything's going wrong, they come on and fix it. So what a player Kyogo is to come on. You can't change this team. As you said, a perfect performance last week, 7-0. Why change it? It's working.
Frank, here's the beauty of where we are as a team. If he wants to change it, say Guacamarcas, I mean, he come off himself. I was at the game and I saw him indicating to the bench that he needed to come off, and he was holding his hamstring. So that may be a significant injury. But even if it's not a significant injury, and even if he is fit enough to start, and I'm not aware yet whether that's the case, but isn't it a beautiful situation to be in, where we have a ready-made replacement? Whereas if you think at the turn of the year, think of December when we're playing 16-year-olds because we've not got enough players. So it's a real indication of how far forward we've came.
Yeah, well, what I'm excited about, Angie is not, he's took his time this year, he's got the players, he knows the players that he wants in, the players with good attitudes, and that's very important. And what I'm excited about is this is only the beginning, you know, and my biggest worry is in the summer, Man United come in and try and get him.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think he would go. I think Ange has made it absolutely clear he's here for at least a few years. This is only the start of Ange's reign. And I think it would be wonderful, boys and girls, I'm sure we'll all agree, it would be wonderful if he starts with a treble. That would make him incredible in terms of his first season. I think only Martin O'Neill and who else has done a treble? Brendan Rodgers, Martin O'Neill both did trebles in their first seasons. So it would make him a very, very unique manager. But the truth is, nothing's won until it's won. And that means we need to go into that park on Sunday and we need to battle and scrap for every single ball, and we need everybody with the fight and the chasing the way Maeda has done and the way every one of the other players has done up to now. If you've enjoyed the podcast, I hope you have. I hope you've enjoyed the chat with this legend that I'm sitting here with. We, as I've said every week, we can talk about how wonderful it would be to score a winning goal in a cup final for Celtic. Well, he's done it, so he knows exactly what it's all about. If you've enjoyed it, please share it among your friends, your family and your fellow Celtic supporters. And let's hope when we talk next week, we're talking about preparing for a cup final as well as becoming the champions of Scotland yet again. Hail, hail.